conversation on SuperTalk Mississippi.
And now, it's Coast Vue with Ricky Matthews. Brought to you by J. Allen Toyota and AGJ Systems and Networks on SuperTalk 103.1 FM.
Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi, and Mississippi for that matter, a better place to live, work, and play. Hope you're having a great Wednesday, and that things are sort of settling down for you after a busy 4th of July weekend and lots of weather. I'm so sick of rain, I can't stand it. My son Jordan, who fishes around the house a lot after work this time of year, instead of catching specks and redfish, he's catching bass. That's not good for July. Not good. Boy, do we need to get offshore. The weather, man, we need to get back into the afternoon thunderstorm pattern again. This is absolutely ridiculous. Hey, listen, you've heard me talk about this before, but go outside and take a deep breath of coastal Mississippi's salt air, and you'll experience what I like to say often, what John Muir says: nature's peace will flow into you like sunshine flows into trees. Man, do we know that in coastal Mississippi. This place we live in, the paradise of coastal Mississippi, has a way of kind of connecting to your soul, doesn't it? It certainly has connected to mine, and that's what's at the base of Coast Vue these days. You know, I'm not going to talk too often about national issues. I want to mention one here in just a second, and then we're going to get an update on the Conservation Trust Fund, something that I care deeply about. I'm passionate about it, something we've got to get done. And I've got two special guests, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But as it relates to national issues, I'm not going to talk about them unless they really apply to us here in coastal Mississippi, unless there's really kind of a serious application here or impact here. And when I do, though, I'm going to try to connect the dots, because sometimes if you don't remember certain aspects, it's hard to understand a national issue. And I'll try to get back to the basics when I do. So let's just start with this at a macro level, at a very high level. If you think about this economy that we're in today, it's very robust coming out of the pandemic. But on a micro level, there's a lot of interconnected pieces. It's very sensitive dynamics that are presently at play. And it's really complicated, and it affects kind of every aspect of our lives. So what I want to do today is just talk a little bit about that, and in particular, one aspect of that, oil, and we'll come to the oil ingredient here in just a second. But, you know, about every single business you know of is struggling to meet demand and hire employees. That's the reality of coming out of the pandemic. I even read a story the other day that said that even 40% of those who are employed are going to be looking for other jobs because during the pandemic, they had a chance to soul search, et cetera. So there's a lot of moving around going on, and it's going to be dynamic for a while. So that just adds to the challenge for businesses. Think about the airline industry and what they've had to do to ramp back up again, and the struggles they had, say, over the 4th of July weekend. You see lots being written about that and talked about. If you just think about prices in general, they seem to be up across the board. And right now it's more, at least the Federal Reserve is hoping this is the case, more about supply and demand, and that the long-term, risks associated with inflation, that they're still kind of low, that what we're experiencing is an inflation that's really more about the ramp up that businesses are struggling with to meet demand. So we see a lot of high prices right now. But the one area that's really struggling, and it's important to us, is OPEC. During the pandemic, just think about it. People weren't driving their cars. They weren't doing the kind of things they normally do. There was this huge glut of oil out there. And because of that, price of oil and our gas continue to fall. But now we need OPEC to actually increase production again. And until they do, the price of oil is going to continue to go up. So is the price of gas we pay at the pump, or the price of gas we pay at the pump. It will continue to go up as well. But at a time when we need OPEC to have their act together, they don't have their act together. They're actually in a really significant dispute. Specifically, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are at sort of loggerheads with one another. And at the recent OPEC meeting, they literally had to end the meeting. They couldn't find a resolution of the dispute between Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. So essentially what that is doing, and at least in the short term, is it creates an oil crisis. Let me remind you what OPEC is. OPEC is and it's literally straight from Wikipedia. The stated mission of the organization is to coordinate and unify petroleum policies of its member countries and ensure the stabilization of oil markets in order to secure efficient economic and regular supply of petroleum to consumers. It goes on from there. But the current OPEC members are these: Algeria, Angola, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Libya, Nigeria, the Republic of Congo, Saudi Arabia, who incidentally is the de facto leader, United Arab Emirates, who they're sort of in a conflict with, and Venezuela. By the way, you don't see Russia or the United States on that list. You should know this, that we still import a significant amount of oil from Russia. In 2020, it was about 538,000 barrels a day. That was up from 2019 when we were doing 520,000 barrels a day. And so for the last 6 months of 2020, going into January 2021, we continue to increase the production of oil the import of oil from Russia. Essentially, even with the frosty relationship with Russia, we still are very dependent on Moscow's oil. Now, here's a list you may not be aware of, the top 5 importers. Canada is number 1. In fact, if you think about Mississippi, the number 1 trade relationship we have is with Canada. 52% of all oil for the entire United States comes from Canada. People think that it's coming from the Middle East, but it's not. 11% from Mexico, 7% from Russia, only 7% from Saudi Arabia. I say only 7%. It's enough to really impact things. And Colombia, 4%. We've got to move toward energy independence, and it's something you'll hear a lot of discussion about. What I worry about is that in the Biden's administration push to decrease oil production, they were in such a rush to do that for all their stated reasons that they didn't fully understand or even wait to understand what the impact of the pandemic was going to be and all that. So essentially what you have now is a lot of variables that are swirling all at the same time. And it didn't need to be this way. They should have just held their horses and understood what the situation is. And if their goal was to reduce production in the United States, they should have done so within the guides of understanding, sort of what the global situation was related to oil. We're going to keep an eye on that. It's a very dynamic situation, and we'll continue to see gas prices go up until they can solve their sort of disputes there within OPEC. So now let's move on. I want to talk about the latest on the Conservation Trust Fund. If you've not heard this conversation before, really, especially if you're an outdoorsman, if you enjoy being in the outdoors, listen carefully to the rest of this show, because we're going to help remind you what this is all about, what the holdup is, what our competitor states are doing. And, there's a lot to unfold here, but we have 2 special guests. Both of them been on the show several times. First, I want to introduce Ed Penny, who's the Director of Public Policy for Ducks Unlimited in the Southern region. He's based in Jackson, but he covers state and federal policies from areas from New Mexico all the way up to Virginia. And also Alex Littlejohn, he's the Mississippi State Director for the Nature Conservancy. Good morning, Ed and Alex. How you guys doing?
Doing great, Ricky. Great to see you again.
So, okay, well, Alex, you know this well, but Ed, you especially know this. While we may import 52% of our oil from Canada, we also import a bunch of ducks from Canada, don't we?
We do import a bunch of ducks, and unfortunately, it's pretty dry. I'm hoping that we get some rain coming through the Midwest this week and next, but it has been pretty dry, so things are not looking very good up there.
I hate to hear it too, because at our place up in the Delta, I would say if you go back 4 years, we have seen the population of ducks, the migration of ducks, go down, 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 and usually after the season shuts down, we start to see a relatively large influx of ducks, like in February, or so to speak. But one day we'll spend some time and talk about all that. Hey, before we get into the Conservation Trust Fund, Ed, why don't we start with you? What are you up to these days? I mean, what's a day in the life of Ed Penny look like at Ducks Unlimited?
A day in the life of Ed Penny at Ducks Unlimited. I wish I was able to get on the radio with you more often, Ricky. But most of what I do doesn't really change throughout the year except during duck season. But this time of year, we're educating lawmakers, we're educating policymakers, we're taking them out on tours to show them the habitat projects that we work on, to show them the areas that we all work so hard to protect and conserve. So it's more education and outreach. We're not in the state capitals day in and day out like we are in the spring and winter, but we're also engaging our grassroots members. In Mississippi, we have about 10,000 DU members, and it's my job to educate them about what their lawmakers are doing. So in Mississippi, we got to tell them what's happening with the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund. So that's really what I'm doing nowadays.
So, Alex, we've got less than a minute in this segment. We can pick up on the other side, but what's a day in the life of Alex look like?
It's pretty much the same as Ed described. We're getting out and meeting people where they are, trying to get on the ground, moving some projects forward across the state. A little different aspect from my role versus Ed is I've got a fair amount of responsibility in fundraising for the chapter, so getting out in front of donors, and each chapter in TNC across the U.S. has a board of trustees that manages our yearly operations, getting out in front of them. And really the topic of conversation is, at the end of the day, unless you're a Mississippi State Bulldog fan, it's the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund. But, shout out to mine and Ed's alma mater. We're now national champions too, so that carries a lot of the conversation forward.
So let's do this. We'll pick it up on the other side with Ed Penny and Alex Littlejohn, and we'll talk about the Conservation Trust Fund. So if you don't know about that, pay attention to what's coming next. I think you'll be really glad you did. We'll see you after this break.
Coast Vue on SuperTalk 103.1 is brought to you by J. Allen Toyota on I-10 exit 38 Gulfport. See all the incredible inventory at allentoyota.com. And remember, when you think Toyota, think J. Allen Toyota.
Hey, South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles, and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here at I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport or on allentoyota.com.
The streets of downtown Gulfport will be lined with food trucks this Saturday for Ugly Tie Fest. Finally, a festival for Dad. Ice-cold beer, great live music all day, classic motorcycles, and delicious food truck food. So come hungry and ready to have some fun. Bring your dad and the whole family to Ugly Tie Fest in downtown Gulfport, Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Admission is free.
If Alexa's part of your life, you've got one more way to access SuperTalk. SuperTalk Mississippi is now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Once enabled, just say, Alexa, play SuperTalk Mississippi at any time and start listening. It's that easy. Just one more way to stay informed and connected with your state. Learn more at supertalk.fm/Alexa. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen. Okay. Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
106.3 Casino Radio is here. Tune to 106.3 to discover all of our must-see attractions and everything that's happening at our 12 incredible casino resorts. Where to eat, where to stay, what to do, and where to play. 106.3 Casino Radio has you covered with everything you need to know to help make your visit here to the coast one you'll never forget. Turn on 106.3 Casino Radio or listen now on our website, CasinoRadio1063.com.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast Vue. We have Ed Penny with us today and Alex Littlejohn. They're both they're regular guests here on Coast Vue. Ed's with Ducks Unlimited and Alex is with the Nature Conservancy, and we're going to talk about the Outdoor Stewardship Fund. I call it the Conservation Trust Fund, but you'll understand why this subject is really important. But before we go any further, let me we kind of had to rush off when Alex was talking. But two things, Alex. Number one, as it relates to Mississippi State, man, what a great run that was. I know, Ed, you're a big fan as well. Your alma mater as well. But, man, was it great to see Mississippi State finally go all the way.
Yeah. It's good. It was just good to see Mississippi win in general. I was born and raised in Oxford, watched a fair amount of Ole Miss baseball growing up and watched it change with Bianco coming on board. Went to Mississippi State, and I would tell you I probably didn't miss more than a dozen games at Duty Noble. And it was just nice to sit there shoulder to shoulder with my dad and watch that final game and watch him finally win. And the only regret I have is that my grandfather didn't get to see it. He was a staunch Bulldog, and he would have loved every bit of it.
You know, I had the opportunity to spend time in Alabama, had responsibilities for Mobile, Birmingham, Huntsville, and other products in that state. I'm from Birmingham. I was born in Birmingham. Came to coast of Mississippi when I was 4 years old. But there's a unique relationship between sort of just about everybody in that state who aren't Auburn fans in Alabama. I mean, you know, they're the blue collar people who never even went to the University of Alabama follow Alabama football. And I compared Mississippi State baseball in sort of the same kind of way. It's a unique thing in America, isn't it, Ed?
It is. And I like what Alex said about finally being on top. We know that we've had the best baseball program in America for the longest time, and we've been so close so many times. So many talented guys have come through that program, and they all can celebrate in this achievement. It's pretty amazing.
Really good. And like one other thing, Alex, I know this to be the case. Actually, you and I are going to visit on your upcoming visit, and that is that you put a lot of miles on your car, don't you?
I spend a lot of time on the road. That's probably where I love being the most. I don't like being behind this desk, as Ed will tell you. This is not where conservation gets done or the efforts we try to pursue get done. So being out on the road is a second home to me.
I know it is. Okay, so let's do this. Ed, let's start with the basics here. Okay, so I'll say basic kind of where the headline is now, and then let's take a step back and talk about what it is. So first of all, this Outdoor Stewardship Fund, the bill passed the House of Representatives. I even talked to the Speaker of the House about it this week on Coast Vue. 117-2. It passed. It goes over to the Senate. And Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann triple refers the bill, gets a lot of pressure from the conservation outdoors community. He gets it out, but what comes out is a bill that is essentially gutted. It doesn't even bear resemblance to the bill that was there that came out of the House. It was really a non-starter for a coalition that developed, and we're going to talk about this coalition in just a second. I was super critical of Delbert Hosemann and his lack of support of that bill. I understand. I've studied in great detail. I've listened to him on SuperTalk. I've read everything he's had to say about it. I get what he's saying, but I just think he's wrong about it. I look forward to sitting with him, in the near future. He'll also be on Coast Vue in the near future. We'll talk more about that. I'm hoping that the clear light of day and some space between, the session closing and where he is today, that he's had time to think about the political ramifications of sort of being opposed to a bill that is supported so widely by the outdoors community. We'll come back to some of those mechanics here in just a second. So let's take a step back, and Ed, kind of give us, what is this bill all about?
So this bill, the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund, last year was House Bill 1231, but it'll be different next year, this coming year. What this bill and what this legislation is intended to do is create a dedicated trust fund to support the things that Mississippians most care about. Ricky, you talk about it all the time, but the outdoors is truly what makes Mississippi so special and so unique. And this trust fund would ensure that the habitat, the waters, the lands, the clean air that we all enjoy and take for granted, that we have that for the future. If there's one thing that Mississippi does all too often is we take that stuff for granted, and this trust fund would support that through leveraging funds, and we can talk about that more later and throughout this show, but we're matching dollars, we're creating additional funding for those things, those places that we care so much about.
And so we're only one of 2 states in the Southeast that are without a fund like this. And essentially what's happening is that states like Georgia and Florida and North Carolina and others, they're taking $15, $20, $25 million, and they're leveraging that to nearly $100 million. And essentially what they're able to do with that money on an annual basis is do really significant projects that really cover the waterfront in terms of outdoor enjoyment. These are not the kind of projects that you just decide to go do. It requires partnerships and organizations like you two guys have. It requires a lot of innovation. Sometimes it's a multi-year, ramp up to do a project like what we're talking about. You have to know that money is stable 2 or 3 years from now, so you can do some of the projects that you would be involved in. But the amount of innovation that's happening in our bordering states is very significant as it relates to the outdoors. What I often say, Ed, and just one more comment about this, what I often say is that by not having that bill passed that would enable us to start a process that would allow us to get the matching funds, we've lost another year of investments. So let's say if it maxed out at $15 million on year number 3, we might be able to turn that into $30, $40, $50 million in terms of matching funds. So we've missed out on that kind of investment in Mississippi's outdoors for another year. And to me, that's part of the tragedy of this. We fall further behind, and we're not making the investments that we need to make. What would you add to that, Ed?
Yeah, missed opportunities are all too often what we talk about in Mississippi, and we're tired of the status quo. We want to make things better. Alex and I and so many others in our coalition and so many voters in Mississippi want to make our state better. Supporting the outdoors through creating this trust fund can do exactly that. But like you just said, we are missing out on literally millions of dollars for our state.
Okay, so Alex, come to you. We mentioned the coalition a couple of times, but what's the current status of the coalition?
Yeah, we've regrouped since session and put together what we would say is a kind of a path forward, knowing that Initiative 65 and the ramifications from that. We know we're going back to the state capitol next session. We're watching what our neighboring states are doing with similar legislative bodies. Just this morning, CNN reported that Governor DeSantis signed $400 million of investments in conservation in Florida, all private lands. The North Carolina legislative body is currently negotiating $350 million to $500 million in investment in conservation in that state. There's been a dozen or so states that have re-upped or increased their investments in conservation. So this is not something that is unusual or uncommon that we're trying to pursue in Mississippi. And, as the coalition goes, we're getting our feet back under us and saying, all right, we see where this fell apart and we know what our hurdles are moving forward, and we're trying to address those head on.
Who are the members of the coalition?
Well, right now it's us and Ducks Unlimited, and you got the Foundation for Wildlife, Fishery, and Parks. I always had to pause for that. And Wildlife Mississippi, and we still have the support of Delta Wildlife, Delta Council, as well as the other members that chimed in and gave us letters of support across the board.
So just so people can understand, the path of least resistance should be, and most likely will be, legislation, as opposed to going the initiative route, which can take, think about Initiative 65 that Alex just mentioned, medical marijuana. We know what the Supreme Court said about that. So the whole initiative process in Mississippi has some cleanup that needs to occur. They'll get it cleaned up, and there'll be a voice for Mississippians in the initiative process. But we're kind of in a no man's land right now where they work through what the next steps are going to be as it relates to that. Not until they identify what then those next steps are can you begin, again, to do an initiative process, which, again is multi-year process. So the legislative process is clearly the best route to go. Now, other states have gone the initiative process, and we could go to the initiative process too. And it's more than likely it would be a slam dunk because there's been a study done. Ed, what were the results of the study in terms of support for Mississippians for such a fund?
I think 75% of Mississippians supported this issue when polled, so it was above and beyond what it would take to pass an initiative. So
yeah, and it cuts across demographics, party lines, the whole 9 yards. That's pretty significant support, if you ask me.
Yeah.
When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation and talk about the legislative process and what some of the key components of it have to be in order for us to be successful. And we'll continue our conversation with Ed Penny and Alex Littlejohn after this break.
Listen live or on demand and watch episodes of Coast Vue on your laptop, desktop, or on your phone or tablet by going to supertalkmsgulfcoast.com.
The streets of downtown Gulfport will be lined with food trucks this Saturday for Ugly Tie Fest. Finally, a festival for Dad. Ice-cold beer, great live music all day, classic motorcycles, and delicious food truck food. So come hungry and ready to have some fun. Bring your dad and the whole family to Ugly Tie Fest in downtown Gulfport, Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Admission is free.
106.3 Casino Radio is here. Tune to 106.3 to discover all of our must-see attractions and everything that's happening at our 12 incredible casino resorts. Where to eat, where to stay, what to do, and where to play. 106.3 Casino Radio has you covered with everything you need to know to help make your visit here to the coast one you'll never forget. Turn on 106.3 Casino Radio or listen now on our website, casinoradio1063.com.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking very hard-to-find PPE items to make our community a safer place. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. They were even sending thousands of dollars of PPE supplies free to local schools in need with help from other local business leaders. The next time your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider a local company that supports your ball teams, cheerleaders, and area homeless. Consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply, the local guys that keep your prices fair, your service and selection excellent, and your health our business. Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place. The new SuperTalk.fm.
Hey, South Mississippi, the future has arrived. It's 2021, and at J. Allen Toyota, we're here to serve you. Want to let you know that we have Allen's lifetime warranty on every new Toyota we sell. That also comes with Toyota Care. That's 2 years and 25,000 miles of complimentary maintenance. We have a great rental department. Our service department's ready to take care of your current vehicle. We're rolling out J. Allen certified pre-owned for 2021. You got to come to I-10 exit 38 right here in Gulfport. You're going to love what we have to offer. When you think Toyota, think Allen Toyota.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer, songwriter. Has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard. And,
Wow.
All this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show. Every day, we're driving the debate in America with the fastest moving, hardest hitting, most comprehensive, fact-based commentary on the radio. We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth. Our show is a meeting place of ideas. We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Weeknights at 9
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show
on Super Talk Mississippi. Super Talk Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi.
And now, it's Coast View with Ricky Matthews. Brought to you by J. Allen Toyota, Gulf Coast Business Supply, and AGJ Systems and Networks on Super Talk 103.1 FM.
Welcome back to Coast View. I have Ed Penny from Ducks Unlimited and Alex Littlejohn from the Nature Conservancy, and we're talking about the outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund. I call it the Conservation Trust Fund, but should probably call it what it really is. At the end of the day, it's about creating a pool of money in Mississippi that we can then go out and get federal matching funds. I think a good place to start, guys, instead of trying to talk about all the mechanisms of the bill, let's talk about what the lieutenant governor's objections were. And by the time this triple referral came back out, when we say the bill was gutted, why those characteristics that he changed were so important. So let's talk, Alex, you want to give it a go? And then Ed, you can kind of fill in the spaces. What were the main changes that the lieutenant governor made to the bill?
Certainly the changes that came from the Senate side of the equation was they didn't like the diversion of existing tax. They wanted it to be appropriated and didn't like the amount.
Okay, so before we go further, when we say diversion of existing tax, specifically what was the bill wanting to happen?
Yeah, the bill that was passed out of the House, the original bill, was going to divert a portion of the sales tax associated with sporting good items. And that was going to be capped at $15 million a year. Well, when it got to Senate, the changes made there compared to the House was they didn't like that approach. They wanted to have the ability every year to just appropriate an amount, for it not to be tied to a source such as sporting goods or sales tax associated with sporting goods. And then they didn't like the amount. From what we understand, they didn't like $15 million. They wanted it to be lower. And the other changes made were significant as well. They didn't like the participation of NGOs much, and those members are the Nature Conservancy, Ducks Unlimited, Delta Wildlife Mississippi, the people in this world every day that are moving this ball forward at the federal and state level. They didn't want us to participate or be able to participate in helping leverage funds or participating in leveraging funds from federal sources. And then they didn't want private lands conservation to be a part of it. So they didn't want any of the funds to go towards conservation on private lands. And I would tell you, any one of those is very significant. All three of them combined pretty much altered the bill so much that we couldn't support it as a coalition. mainly because you need all three of those components to not only be innovative as our neighboring states are being, but you need the power of the amount of money and the coalition behind it to leverage more money down, so that we're all speaking from the same sheet of music. We're singing from the same sheet of music. Lord, my grandmother would be upset that I confused that. And not only that, we need private lands to be a part of it, because over 80% of Mississippi is privately held, and wildlife doesn't know a property line. Conservation doesn't know a property line if it's a state line or a county line or a private versus public line. I mean, you've got to have all of those three to have the recipe for a good conservation foundation that we can use to put Mississippi on top and in a winning category at the table that we need to be at.
So let's kind of break this down a little bit further. So the Senate under Delbert Hoseman's leadership didn't like $15 million. They wanted it to be less. So in the bill that came out of the Senate, it had no amount in there, zero amount. Okay. So $15 million compared to what you mentioned about CNN reporting what happened over in Florida, $400 million in Florida, $400 million, 100% private land, because they recognize that to do true conservation, you got to get into private land. We're going to talk about that and the role of farmers play in this conversation in a big, big way here in just a second. So that's number one. Second, they didn't want NGOs. That what that stands for is non-government organizations like the Sierra, like Ducks Unlimited and the Nature Conservancy. Okay, so Ed, you guys are involved in programs all the time that involve federal government and private lands, and you're subject to audits, federal audits, and the whole 9 yards. This is what you do, isn't it?
This is exactly what we do. So we take everybody knows our funding model, or should know, is we take the dollars that we raise at a local DU banquet, we leverage that with state dollars from, say, a state duck stamp, or, for example, Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund in Mississippi, if we get that passed, and then leverage that with other funding sources from the federal government that are already available through the Farm Bill, through North American Wetland Conservation Act, through the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and we do projects on, very often, public land. We do waterfowl habitat projects that we enjoy here in Mississippi, that I've hunted on, that Alex has hunted on, that everybody in this entire state has got the opportunity to hunt on and hunt in, and that's the kind of projects we do. TNC does the same projects. All these conservation organizations that are on this coalition are doing similar projects, so we're all subject to stringent oversight from both the federal and the state government already, and furthermore, our membership expects us to do good things with the funding that they give us. So, we're not afraid of oversight and transparency, and in fact, we very much invite it and enjoy it. So that's kind of where we are.
So if you think about this for a second, if you think about the non-government organizations like yours in partnership with the state, that seems like a great arrangement, because essentially what we're doing is we're enabling you guys to go find innovative projects to do, to go find what the funding mechanism could be in terms of the matching funds. And essentially, you're sort of our legs and our innovative ears and minds out there working on what would ultimately be competing projects for who's going to get this money. And the best project's going to win. The one that has the most the most impact is going to win. Ultimately, Mississippi wins. That's how this works. Okay. So as we go forward, though, one of the things that I've talked about often on this show is the fact that in my place up in the Delta, we lease a lot of land from farmers, and we'd be toast if we weren't working with the farmer on doing improvements, habitat improvement, and the farmer is a critical element to that. There are things that we can do working together with just good sweat equity and the right equipment. There are some things, though, that cost some money to do. And, we would like to be able to do them, but they're just too expensive to do. What we want to be able to do is be able to go get Farm Act funds. Now, what the bill that came out of the Senate will not enable the Farm Act money because farm land is privately held. So about $7 billion is there now, but there's a lot of effort. I think the Walton Family Trust and others are working with the Biden administration to push that number up to, what is it, Alex, 15 billion potentially or more?
There's an effort underway to get that tremendously increased, and we want to see that private lands. We want to see investments in private lands through the Farm Bill increased. Absolutely.
So the Stewardship trust fund that came out of the Senate would not enable private lands. So the largest bucket of money available currently is through the Farm Bill, but we would not be able to get that money because, at least from a matching fund point of view, because we would not be able to go there. So it is the largest bucket of money, right?
That's absolutely correct. The largest funding vehicle for private lands in the entire country is the Farm Bill.
And, you mentioned over 80%, but it's more like near 90% of the land in Mississippi is privately held. We're not trying, and by the way, this is, there's some large tracts of land for sure, but there are a lot of small tracts of land across the state. And we bring large tracts and big tracts together and have innovative programs on enhancing. And I looked at the list that you sent from North Carolina, and man, it's a wide range of projects. I mean, it really is incredible. I mean, some of it's on public land, some of it's on private land. Can you give a sense of what some of the projects might look like, Alex?
From our standpoint, boiling it down to Mississippi, those potential projects that Ed and I would work on could be a conservation reserve program project where we reforest a big block of ground in the Delta or outside the Delta, and the private landowner keeps ownership, but we pay for the reforestation or restoration on it. In South Mississippi, maybe it's a conservation easement along the Pascagoula River where the family's gotten together and says, hey, we don't want to sell this particular property, but we would love to make sure that it's protected moving into the future. So we would like to pursue a conservation easement, and that can be pursued across the state.
Yeah.
Maybe it's landowners that want to, maybe it's landowners that want to manage the habitat such that they need fire on the ground, but they don't know how to do it. They don't have that technical expertise to do that. I don't know who's after me, but they are after me. That's
okay, but let's do this. Let's go to break, and then when we come back on the other side, we'll continue to give some examples. But I love the idea around the Pascagoula River, largest undammed waterway in the United States. It's incredible complex. Go to Google Earth and look at the Pascagoula River estuarian complex. Man, it's unbelievable, its value to Mississippi, and the opportunities we have to enjoy that are incredible. And what ways to enhance that would only improve our outdoor recreation here in coastal Mississippi. When we come back, we'll continue our conversations with Ed Penny and Alex Littlejohn.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place. The new SuperTalk.fm.
Hey, South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles, and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here, I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport, or on allentoyota.com.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We're talking to Del Berra. Take me back to growing up and what it was like in the household with a dad like Yogi Berra.
You know, we grew up with his funny sayings. You know, I remember Dad managing the Mets, and me, Larry, and Timmy are watching the game on TV. And all of a sudden, two streakers run out of the stands on TV, and the camera flips away from them. So when he gets home, me, Larry, and Timmy say, "Hey, Dad, those streakers, what were they, boys or girls? We need to know." And Dad looked us right in the eye and said, "I couldn't tell. They had bags over their heads."
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
The streets of downtown Gulfport will be lined with food trucks this Saturday for Ugly Tie Fest. Finally, a festival for Dad. Ice cold beer, great live music all day, classic motorcycles, and delicious food truck food. So come hungry and ready to have some fun. Bring your dad and the whole family to Ugly Tie Fest in downtown Gulfport, Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Admission is free.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast Vue with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast Vue. We're having a wonderful visit today about the outdoors in Mississippi and opportunities we have in front of us to enhance them with Ed Penny and Alex Littlejohn. Alex, one other thing about Florida, $400 million. They're going to be able to then match that money. We're talking about putting $1 billion+ once the match is done back into outdoor enjoyment in Florida. Man, that is unbelievable.
And they'll be able to do it in partnership with the private landowner. You know, it's really a true investment in the state's natural resources that I can promise you, see a return on. Be a quality of life, tourism. I mean, Mississippi has a 90-mile coast, and we love it, and we want to treasure it, and we want to take care of it. But think of all the people that are traveling to Florida from Mississippi, just Mississippi. I mean, I'm headed there next week.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can promise you that return is quite incredible from a $400 million investment that they'll be able to leverage into $1 billion. It really, really matters.
Yeah, it really. And we're talking about 15 million. We can't even get 15 million. Unbelievable. Yeah. Hey, Ed, so give me some more examples.
Yeah, so late in the session, we started talking to some legislators about what's going on in their communities because they need funding for their local parks. They need funding for their local open space areas, for trails, for river access, lake access, those types of things, and they're looking for investment. But right now, the state budget doesn't have dollars for those kinds of projects. So the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund is a perfect vehicle for that. And they were supporting it. They were supporting it because of what it meant for their small towns. These aren't the Oxfords in DeSoto County or Gulfport. These are the small communities that most of us live in and sleep in every night. So we're trying to invest in these smaller towns and communities as well.
What's important about the coalition you guys have put together represents such a large majority of outdoorsmen in the state, people who are involved in leadership. What's important is that you're able to raise a lot of money. I mean, it takes money to fight a fight like this, and unfortunately, we're having to fight that fight. At least as where we're sitting now. Hopefully, you know, between now and the legislative session, we can, cooler heads will prevail. The lieutenant governor will begin to understand more about some elements maybe he didn't get as well as as he should have at the time, and that we can move this bill forward in a way, finding a great compromise and creating this fund so we can go out and get the matching funds and start doing these amazing projects across the state. Let's hope that's the case. But if it doesn't happen, the coalition has incredible ability to raise money. I mean, you probably will raise $150, $200, maybe even more $100,000 in order to run a really well-oiled machine kind of campaign around this, and focused on touching every single outdoorsman in the state of Mississippi and helping them understand why this is important to them. You know, we go enjoy the outdoors, and not always do we understand the role government can play in helping us enhance that situation that we're enjoying. And now we get a chance to sort of connect the dots. Your enjoyment here. Here's the role government can play to make this better. We're gonna connect the dots for you, and get people involved in the political process so that maybe we can get the Senate on our side. I really do believe cooler heads will prevail, and that we'll get an opportunity to make this happen, and we can quit falling behind in an area where we need to go move forward. I had Will Primus on the show recently, and it just boggles the mind, in my mind and his mind, that we can't already have this fund in place. More, 15 million, we need 50 million. Why wouldn't we be? I mean, if they're going to do 400 million in Florida, why wouldn't we be pushing for a higher opportunity here? 15 million seems small potatoes in the scheme of Mississippi's contributions to the outdoor community across the United States. Final word before we move on, Alex?
I mean, you're speaking to the choir here. This would be and is going to be, because I'm an optimist. And it's going to be a win for Mississippi, a win across the board. It's not just, as Ed alluded to, it's not just a hunting and fishing win. It's a win for your cities and communities, and just a quality daily life in Mississippi. It's putting Mississippi first across the board.
Ed, what would you add?
The only thing I would add is conservation affects so much of what we do here, and I'm privileged to get to talk about it with y'all. I appreciate the chance to talk about it again. Anytime we can talk about policy issues that matter to real Mississippians is a great thing. So we look forward to continuing to work on this over the coming year.
What's interesting is, as we start to kind of wind things down, what's interesting to me is that when I have a show about this, I hear from a growing number of people who say, they really weren't paying attention. I'm paying attention now. Man, why wouldn't we already had this? We're going to continue. I know we're kind of in the off season for the legislature right now, but we're not in the off season for enjoying the outdoors. And we're going to continue to stay focused on educating people so they can understand the link between what they're doing and a role the government can play and making it better. I mean, it's that simple at the end of the day. And we just got to do this. I feel so passionate about it. I've enjoyed the outdoors my entire life, and it saved my life. I know it saved your life, guys. Ed and Alex, we've had those conversations. We're now showing it to our kids, and God willing, they'll show it to their kids. And Mississippi will continue to lead the way in so many ways as it relates to the outdoor community, and as it relates to this trust fund. Hopefully, we'll be leading the way pretty soon. So anyway, Ed, thank you so much for spending some time with us. We'll see you in a couple months, and we'll continue the conversation. Alex, I'll see you tomorrow. So I look forward to visiting with you, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you for spending time with me this morning.
Thank you, Rick.
Take care. Thank you.
You bet, guys. We'll see you, and have a great day.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.